Tuesday morning, I pour my coffee, slide back the curtain, and for a second I think I'm seeing a trick of light, until I realize the trick is a fresh concrete curb cutting across where my driveway used to be. My mug hits the tile and shatters because you don't expect a neighborhood to annex your asphalt at 3 in the morning. Then there's a letter taped to my garage. Annexed per Section 12B. Violators towed at owner's expense. Welcome to Cedarbrook Estates. If you've lived long enough, you learn to pick your fights. And you learn who not to underestimate. Pamela Voss looked like someone you didn't pick a fight with. Mid-60s, pearls, a smile that practiced patience in another room. She'd run the HOA here for years like a backyard fiefdom. What she didn't know was that I'd spent the better part of my adult life reading legal papers and arguing about property lines, and I keep files. Bad habit, good outcome. 3 years before my driveway became a concrete question mark. Denise and I moved into a corner lot on Whitmore Lane. Corner lot means sunlight, it means elbow room. And yes, it meant a long side entry driveway that hugged the decorative green belt. Our real estate guy, Skip, mentioned an easement in the title the way people mention weather casual assumed. We signed, we lit candles. Biscuit, the golden retriever, claimed the yard in 45 seconds flat and taught himself a route for inspecting the perimeter. Life felt steady enough to be dangerous. Then the HOA started doing what small empires do. They tested limits. A retired electrician named Dwight parked an old trailer for a couple weeks and Pamela had it towed without warning. $685 gone. In a weekend, she ran the board meetings like a conductor who refuses to let anyone change the tempo. I sat in a beige carpet community center, smelled someone's reheated lasagna, and watched a man who'd spent decades with his hands get bulldozed by a woman who'd never seen an extension cord that was the first sign something wasn't right. So I started documenting boring stuff, really letters, dates, photos, neighbor statements, but it stacked up. I helped Dwight write an objection, I talked to neighbors, I filed copies. It doesn't make a man a hero to keep records, it just makes him inconvenient to people who rely on being unnoticed. Fast forward 14 months. I hired Terrence Webb to build a small limestone retaining wall, 18 inches functional. The slope was eating my driveway. I pulled the county permit, read the HOA architectural guidelines, did the homework. Monday morning, Terrence starts, and Monday afternoon, Pamela shows up with a clipboard and the tone of someone interrupting a private performance. "That wall is not approved," she declared. I smiled and handed her the section of the guidelines it complied with. She flipped a page, read an addendum dated August, and told me limestone was suddenly verboten in the Greenbelt adjacent zone. There are rules to changing rules. Notice matters. Cedarbrook's covenants require certified mail or newsletter publication or posting for 30 days. I had photos of the community board with a lost cat flyer and a babysitter ad. I submitted a 12-page objection with photos and neighbor statements. Pamela called a special meeting and the fine stood, so I CC'd the Attorney General's HOA Enforcement Division and a consumer protection attorney named Bridget Farwell, who'd spent years taking on exactly this kind of quiet municipality-style scheme. That special meeting changed the ambient temperature in the room. People started talking. Clifton Marsh, a retired math teacher, told me Pamela had pulled that trick on him 2 years earlier, patterns lined up into evidence. And evidence is persuasive when it's organized. At the budget meeting, I requested HOA contractor invoices. Most people don't know you can do that in Ohio. Financial records are accessible to association members. What I found was a landscaping company paid $38,000 a year when a prior contractor had done the same for $21,000. One of the company principals shared a name with Pamela's daughter. It smells like coincidence until it smells like profit, and profit tends to make people creative about notice. Bridget ran an inquiry quietly, then the HOA did something audacious. A certified letter to my door claiming 28 feet of my driveway, the strip I cross daily, had been annexed as common area via an amendment recorded 3 weeks earlier with no homeowner vote. They'd filed an amendment and hoped nobody would check the original plat. That's the kind of administrative boldness that expects collective apathy to do most of the heavy lifting. Here's the twist, because stories turn on records. I went to the county recorder, sat in my truck reading the original 1987 plat. The plat shows a 30-foot owner's access strip along the greenbelt and a pertinent easement attached to my lot in perpetuity. In plain English, the original lot plan gives me exclusive access, and no HOA amendment can extinguish a plat-level easement without court and proof. That discovery changed the whole game. It turned the story from "they said so" to "here are the documents." Ronald Spear, the title examiner Bridget hired, found another bomb in 2019. Cedarbrook had borrowed $60,000 from an LLC called Voss Capital Management, registered to Pamela. The loan was supposedly repaid, but the balance still showed $47,000 outstanding. Pamela had effectively been lending the association money at high interest and siphoning dues back to herself. Small, efficient theft depends on everyone's silence and a trusting membership. We did three things in parallel. Bridget filed an emergency motion to void the amendment for procedural deficiency and cited the plat easement. She referred the loan paperwork to the state for fraud review, and we quietly gathered affidavits, 14 households with their own stories, 41 pages of sworn statements. There's a funny human truth: give neighbors a pen and a purpose, and they'll tell you more than they meant to. Pamela panicked. She pulled back small fines, canceled open forums, and filled the neighborhood with whisper campaigns about me being difficult. She filed a frivolous complaint about my perfectly permitted drainage channel, and the municipal compliance officer checked my paperwork and essentially said, "Probably from the HOA." We photographed that too. These are the small, noisy acts of someone who has begun to lose the map. Then she crossed a line with a hearing looming. She had HOA trucks block my driveway, like theater with a flatbed, reckless and petty, except legally it was dumb because my county permit classified that driveway approach as a private vehicular access way. An obstruction could be towed immediately on my order. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line, gave them the permit number and the court case number, and waited about 45 minutes. The late afternoon light poured through the kitchen windows, and oddly, the ordinary looked cinematic for a minute. The tow truck showed up and hauled away 2 HOA vehicles. I watched from the porch with a cup of coffee that never tasted better. Sometimes justice is just seeing someone load their pride onto a flatbed. Local news picked up the story. Sandra Chu did a segment. Dwight and Priscilla in Clifton spoke suddenly. Cedarbrook's private grievances were public social media, lit up. The county prosecutor opened a review. The judge granted a temporary restraining order and froze construction. We won the morning, and Pamela made the tactical error of escalating into spectacle. At the full hearing, the judge voided the amendment on procedural grounds and incompatibility with the recorded plat easement. She issued a permanent injunction against any HOA action on my driveway and ordered the HOA to pay my legal fees, $18,400. Then she referred the Voss Capital loan to the county prosecutor for potential fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. The courtroom held a breath. And then the noise came, the sound of a community realizing the rules apply to everybody. Pamela walked out of the courthouse, no comment, shoulders tight. She drove away and resigned within 30 days. 2 allies followed. The new board rebid the landscaping contract competitively and saved about $17,000 a year. Those savings boosted the reserve fund, and Hazel Trent, a retired teacher, suggested a better use: a Cedarbrook Estates skilled trades scholarship for local students pursuing HVAC, electrical plumbing, the people who keep real life running. At the small ceremony in the community center, Dwight handed out the first checks and watched 2 kids' faces change a little. I don't know if that's poetic, but it felt like a good use of recovered money. If there's a lesson here, it's quiet and practical. Power depends on silence, and silence can be broken by paper. Keep your plats, request your HOA records, document everything, and show up. The county recorder's office is not glamorous, it's not dramatic, but it keeps the ledger that rights small wrongs. These are the unspectacular tools that protect ordinary life. Winning didn't feel cinematic, it felt like relief and a little quiet joy. Denise said, "You didn't do this for us, you did it for Dwight." And she was right. The satisfying part wasn't just the tow trucks or Pamela's resignation, it was watching neighbors reclaim ordinary dignity, watching people clap on courthouse steps because they could, because the rulebook worked when someone enforced it. So tell me, when institutions or the small authorities near your life cross a line, when does pushback become necessary? And when does it become vigilantism? Should homeowners associations have more oversight, or should we expect courts and reporters to fix neighborhood wrongs? Drop your worst HOA horror, your best comeback. And tell me where you stand on justice and revenge if you've been in my shoes. Tell us what you did. If you haven't, tell us what you do. Share this comment below, and let's argue in the comments. I read them all.